What's going on, Tamers? East here. Now, I know that I might look very level-headed and calm, cool, and collected right now, but I am actually fuming. A couple months back, I ordered the LM4 Toward Weiss box set, the reprints from the premium Bandai website, and I got them in the mail today, and it's this. That ain't it. I don't know what you think this is supposed to look like, but this ain't it. And so I called up or I emailed their customer support line, and they said, actually, looks like everything on our side is correct, so there's not really we can do to help you here. And I'm like, I'm 99% sure I double checked it and it was the correct thing, and I actually bought the box and they just happened to be the same price, go figure. And yeah, I just didn't get it. And so as a content creator, gotta make sure you have the right stuff, and so I had to go out and buy two of these bad boys from a shop at like $25 markup for each box. So yeah, I'm having a great day. We do it for the content. The silver lining here is that now I finally have those precious double colored Minboosts in my hands, and I cannot wait to give them a spin. However, before all of that, we need to take a look and talk about the third week of events for the BT19. Now, when this set first came out, I think it was pretty explosive with lots of folks trying out a bunch of stuff, and then very quickly, Lord Nightmon became the centerpiece of the entire meta for the game. And so after those first two roller coaster weeks, I think this third week we're finally starting to see things settle in. So to learn more, let's talk about some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past week. Diving into last week's results, it feels like the upper echelon of decks fit into one of either two categories. The first being hyper offense, when you take a look at decks like Lord Nightmon X Antibody, Fear Lucamon Taki Mikazuchi, Red Hybrid, or even Mirage Galgamon. With the second category being really quick setup defensive decks, things like Magnamon Armor, the blue base using the Vmon cards, or Sakyamon with the Ruin Mode loop variant, able to give minus DP every single turn. You've also got outright security control, as well as things like 7 Great Demon Lords. Speaking on Sakyamon for just a little bit longer, last week I think I alluded to this, but the Ruin Mode loop version of that deck is becoming really popular, with the larger chunk of Sakyamon wins this past week using that variant. Stay tuned, because we're going to look at one of those Ruin Mode loop decks in just a moment. And then as we drop down to the entraining level, we see a lot of decks that do their own thing really well, but they may struggle against some of the stronger decks in the game right now. When you take a look at things like Dodogodamon, Omnimon Ace, or even Lucamon. Alongside those, we got a couple of really cool surprise tops from decks that I personally haven't seen in a while. Things like Bloom Lord, as well as Sandrymon, and even, yes, calling me very surprised here, Machinedramon. Speaking of Bloom Lord, in a recent stream I did, I actually reviewed the Bandai Card Game Fest in Manila, which featured a Bloom Lord deck in the finals, and holy cow, what a game. I have almost no words for how wild it gets at the very end. The video of that's going to be coming to the channel very soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you know exactly when it goes live, and also for more Digimon card game content shuffled directly into your YouTube feed. Since the most updated restricted list nixed the yellow vaccine, it feels like we haven't talked much about Magnamon Armor at all. But make no mistake, the blue version of this deck still does not miss a beat. A big wall that's unaffected by your opponent's effects is still a very scary thing in this game, and this list here does that in equal parts simply and effectively. At the lower end, you've got this rondo of Vmon cards who all have great effects, whether it's card draw, memory efficiency, or reduced Digivolution costs. Meanwhile, level 4s are all great choices with the Magnamon who can unsuspend and then increase his own DP. You've also got the Security Ball Magnamon who can also bounce cards back to your opponent's hand and de-Digivolve. And you've also got a couple copies of the Promo Flamedramon who can make your opponent draw security whenever his attack target is changed. Something that's going to be super important, especially when you get to your Magnamon X Antibody on the field as well. While I have seen a couple copies of this deck run level 5s and things like the BT19 Huankumon who can make it unkillable by battle, which would be super effective against things like Lord Nightmon X Antibody, this list cuts all the level 5s and hope for just level 6s and some of the higher end cards in the level 7s. The level 6s are of course the Magnamon X Antibody here, the boss monster of the deck, but the level 7s here include things like the Blitz Omni who can help you close out games. You've also got the Omnimon X Antibody who's a great source of removal, as well as some really targeted, almost perfect targeted security removal. And then also a couple copies of the Paladin Mode Ace in case your opponent tries to go wide with Weenie Hut Jr. The option choices for this deck are incredibly streamlined with things like the Blue Memory Boost and the Mental Training cards to help you search out the pieces that you need, as well as a couple copies of the Davis Tamer to search out just a little bit more while also starting every single turn with 3 memory. You've also got the mandatory 1 copy of Awakening of the Golden Knight, which is restricted to 1 per deck. Thank you again, restricted list, letting you get to your Magnamon X Antibody for a cheaper cost, as well as a couple copies of Fire Rocket to increase its attack power in case you want to be able to swing and just close out all of your opponent's security in one go. With some of the strongest decks in the game right now playing Digimon by effects with things like the Fairytale Deck Mikazuchi, as well as things like Lord Nightmon X Antibody. Crimson Blaze, the 2 copies here in this deck, seem like a fantastic choice as a way to wipe some of those smaller Digimon off the board if possible at a lower cost, and then more importantly, for that next turn they cannot play Digimon by effects at all. This deck is both fast and strong and has answers to most of the situations you'll come up against in the game right now. And with Vaccine Armor getting hit, if you were down about Magnamon, well don't worry, he just got his groove back. The Sanjimon and Puppets deck piqued a lot of folks' interest when it released alongside some of the other Liberator cards not too long ago. However, since then I think it's been pretty quiet, but this deck here is making quite a bit of noise considering it beat 2 Lord Nightmon X decks back to back in best of 3s during its run. While this deck will probably look pretty similar to most of the Sanjimon decks you've seen in the past, I think the secret sauce comes in the form of the level 6 Ace cards, which are both versatile and terrifying. You've got the Valkyremon Ace who can blanket DP- for a turn, the Cherubimon Ace who can play Digimon and then DP- based on how many you have on the board, as well as the Shadow Seraphimon who can DP- alongside block and de-digivolve opponent's Digimon. One thing I am kind of wary of is how many Tamers this deck runs and how few level 4s it runs. When you take a look, we've got 8 Tamers and then 7 level 4s, but 8 level 5s. I'd be a little anxious running splits like that, but perhaps the things like Ponchesmon, the awesome search of the starter deck Shumon, the cards like Vortex Resonance, as well as physical training make up for some of that. There might also be this case where if you've got 3 memory, you might as well just play down a level 5 Shapiromon directly, and then you can go into an ace after that to take early control of the game. And then thanks to Shapiromon's inheritance effects, it might be easier to keep those aces around by just sacrificing a token or a puppet on the board somewhere. Outside of all that though, I think this deck's game plan is pretty much the same. You want to play down puppets as quickly as possible, use the Orisa Tamer to give them rush, and then close out the game with the Sanjimon's overclock ability, which lets you attack without suspending. Personally, I've only tried the token Goldramon version of this list, however, after looking at this deck, maybe it's worth giving these cards a second look. Each week I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these meta report videos, and this week they chose to see Sakyamon Ruin Mode Loop. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these kinds of videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content, consider becoming a champion level YouTube member or higher. Again, I want to give a lot of love to all the folks who do help support the channel and keep it going, and with that, let's take a look at Sakyamon Ruin Mode Loop. Last week, we took a look at a more Sakyamon-centric build. However, this week we're taking a look at the Ruin Mode Loop variant, a deck that can put your opponent under significant DP- every single turn. Just giving the list a quick scan, you'll notice that there's no level 4s in here at all, and that's because the early game is simply focused on either playing out your level 3s or your search cards and things like the Vika Tamer, the Renamon BT19, which is glared out to hell, as well as some of the Mem Boost cards in either the yellow memory boost or the sepia memory boost, the one that's black-yellow but can also search out yellow cards. The cool thing is that most of these cards have the side effect of giving you memory back during later turns, whether it's the memory boost's delay effect or the Rika Tamer who can rest whenever you play an option to get +1 memory. And then once you've got significant memory, you can just drop a Talmon Ace on the board, and this begins the chain reaction of events. You can use this effect to evolve either into the Sakyamon for card draw and then a blocker token and free option use, or you can use the Kazuhamon, who can play an option to let you evolve into the Ruin mode immediately, while also letting you take the Talmon and sources and create an entirely new stack. You'll notice that this list has 4 copies of the Kaisernail option card, but only runs 3 copies of Otamamon, which could be pretty scary considering he's not really searchable by anything in the deck. Well, fret not, because you'll almost always have the blue source you need to play the Kaisernail because of the level 2 Hyarimons from the EX7 set in this deck. This way, even if you can't evolve into the Kazuhamon, but you have to go the Sakyamon route, you'll still have the option of Kaisernail at your fingertips. And while the Yellow Scramble will almost always be your option of choice to get into your Ruin mode, you do have a couple of other cards in the deck like the one of win rate 60% to make that evolution cost a little bit cheaper, as well as things like blue card for the betting man out there. And so with the ability to play so many option cards for free, it's really easy to see how this deck just tucks your opponent in under that nice cozy blanket of -5 to 10k every single turn until it wins the game. And with that, we're going to wrap up the 3rd week of events for Asia over here for the Digimon card game. And man, looking ahead, we also got a pretty busy schedule here this next week. I'll be looking over the Taskmaster submissions. Thank you so much to everyone who has entered this contest so far. I've had a ton of fun messing with this one. I hope you guys had a lot of fun playing with it yourself. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys have cooked up. Also, something a little bit different. This week I'm going to be doing a VC night for my Discord. So that'll be on October 25th if you live in the West, and October 26th in the morning if you live over here in Asia, I guess the Far East. And yeah, for this one, anyone is free to join, so if you want to yap it up with me and the rest of my folks in Discord, feel free to swing by. Anyways, I've got to get out of here. I've got some pretty cool things to open and some decks to build out after that. I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.